think it's very important that the city of Memphis government and Memphis Light, Gas, and Water jointly lobby the state legislature to have that law changed so that we can once again put the living wage requirement in our contracts.
Very quick thing. And you also do realize lowest is not best.
Right.
But
lowest is not best. I mean, we've been dealing with contracts, and I'm not suggesting that this company is not the best company because I don't know. I wasn't aware of it or anything. But lowest is not always the best bid. And to suggest, because there are times that people have come to this table, and I even think Memphis Light, Gas, and Water has done, and you haven't always given a contract to the lowest, quote, best bid. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Let's move forward. Mr. Crone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it may not be that MLJW has to require a living wage, but companies ought to pay one. But there we go. But companies ought to pay one, and companies ought to pay. Companies ought to pay what jobs are worth. We've had a lot of protests in this city and around the country, in my opinion, trying to get employers in fast food restaurants to pay more than the job is worth. I'm not saying that the people aren't worth more, but the job. The value that the job adds is not worth what those advocates in that particular circumstance trying to get employers to pay arbitrarily. But there comes a time when the people and the job is worth more than a few pennies over minimum wage. And the value that they're adding to the enterprise justifies that. And as I understand it, paying security guards $8 an hour, with all due respect to people who work for $8 an hour, is not going to get the kinds of security guards we need and that we've had. And it's time that business be responsible for that. And the whole idea of paying entry-level jobs, entry-level wages, so that when they build up when the person builds up their work history and can go on to the next job, that the next job pays more than the entry-level position. These are not entry-level positions. And the problem is if you've got the entry-level rung, but the next rung is so far up that nobody can get to it, that's a problem. That's the problem. And I would encourage the council members to consider that when they consider their vote on this contract. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Ms. Fullilove, 1 second, please.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chair. It probably would be redundant, those things that I have already said, and listening to my colleagues here in the council take a very close look and see what some are trying to do to break the spirits, of our city workers. As we talked about during the committee meeting, how we have such a poverty rate, and we're not in the business of creating poverty. We're trying to help people help themselves to get out of poverty. And for any company, I don't care if it's out of town, I prefer Memphis companies and Memphis people working for those companies. That's what I would prefer. But since Memphis Light, Gas, and Water in their bidding process look to the individuals in Alabama, I would think that any conscientious person, CAO, CEO, general, whatever that runs or that's ahead of any company would want to make sure that his people certainly are happy and thriving. That doesn't seem to be the case with this particular contract. Now, I was willing to forego some things on the contract and say, oh, well, let's just make sure we have a stipulation there that you don't reduce the pay of these individuals, you don't take their benefits away. But my goodness, who's going to be the watchdog? Certainly, we don't have anybody here that can be the watchdog to see what they're going to do, to see if they will do the right thing, as CDA has done for the last 20-some years. So I'm saying all of that to say this. I, in good conscience, could not sleep knowing that we have employees who have given their all, who have come from the bowels of Hertz Village and have reared their children who are going off to college. They're no longer on government assistance, but they're taking care of their own. They're paying their taxes. They're doing their fair share. They're staying out of trouble. And for us to sit up, my colleagues, and grant a company who someone said they had a history of people coming and going, just like a revolving door. I don't know. I haven't looked into that. But I want to make sure our people stay strong and stand strong. So on that, and I heard some impassioned pleas coming today when we were upstairs, Mr. Schilling, and of course, Mr. Cliff Dates, who got very emotional, and other people and other workers saying they wanted to keep their jobs, not making $15 an hour and being kicked down to $8 and $9 an hour. That's not the way to do it. Mr. Collins, I guarantee you, and President Collins, I say this to you not out of anything that is profane or vile, but I say this out of love. You know, when I ask the question, are we our brother's keeper, I always say yes. When I talk about what do we do for the least of these, I can answer that question. And I'm going to ask this to you, and I want you to think about it tonight and tomorrow night and the rest of the nights the Lord allows you to live. What have you done for the least of these? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Conrad.